So we talked about the Shemitah, 7 years, right? And the 7th year is the Shemitah, so 7 years is the Shemitah cycle. And then you have 7 cycles of 7. And then the year after that is what? Jubilee. Which means the 7th Shemitah, as far as our end times, would be what? The tribulation period. So we're in which Shemitah? The 6th. And I think the Shemitah year of the 6th Shemitah. And then after the 7th Shemitah, the 7 years, then what year's next? The year of Jubilee. Right. And that's the return. Yes, the return of Jesus. Daniel 12:13. Why are you blessed if you come to 1,335th day? Past his return, or past the abomination of desolation, and which is 75 days past his return. Why is that blessed? Because you come exactly to Hanukkah. Does that just show you so you could celebrate a Jewish feast? Why is that blessed? What? Yes. Antiochus Epiphanes has defiled the temple. He slaughtered the pig in there, put a statue of himself, of Zeus with his face on it on his birthday. It was the abomination of desolation. And now what does the Antichrist do during the tribulation period? He walks into the very temple of God, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 4, proclaiming himself as being God. That's the abomination of desolation. So does the temple need to be cleansed? Yes. Right there is Hanukkah, which of course was it John 10, I think it was, where he was there for Hanukkah in Jerusalem. Okay? So not a biblical feast as far as like they were told to celebrate it, but they did celebrate it. And just like Passover, they weren't given all those rituals for Passover. That developed down through the ages, like the 4 cups of grapefruit or wine and all the stuff that they did, but they fit perfectly the redemption story. So we see that God will actually gives them the customs that they are to use. All right, so we see the tribulation period divided up into what? 2 sections, right? 1260 days this side, 1260 days on this side. And right here is the what? A of B, the Antichrist. What happens to him? Okay, because something happens right here to the Antichrist where everything changes. Okay, Zechariah 11:17. Okay, 11:17. Everybody almost universally agrees this is the Antichrist. It says this: woe to the idol or worthless shepherd, it's IDOL, as in an idol that you worship, that leaveth the flock. The sword will be upon his arm and upon his right eye. His arm will be totally dried up and his right eye will be utterly darkened. So something's going to happen to the worthless or idle shepherd. Okay? Now, as we go through and we read that, he deserts the flock. Now, Revelation, after that, let's go to Revelation 13:16, okay, which is the mark of the beast. All right? And he causes, this is talking about the false prophet of the Antichrist. He causes all, both small and great. And we're going to see that phrase. As I was reading through Revelation last night, I was noticing, wow, it's like mikros, as a microscopic, that's the small, and the great is a megos, as a mega. So he causes the great, both the small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand and in their forehead. So it's on the right side again. Okay? Why does the false prophet put the mark there? Because that's where the Antichrist was fatally wounded. It's a marker. In other words, you're going to really identify with the Antichrist. It's the same place that he has his injury. It's the same place you're going to have his mark. Get it? It's an identifier. Now, listen to Matthew. Okay. And here's a remnant, 5:29 through 30. Just a little remnant that pops up. A little hint of something that Jesus gives. He says this, if your right eye, that's the same eye that the Antichrist had injured, right? That's the same place you get the mark of the beast, right? Offends you, pluck it out and cast it from you, for it's profitable for you for one of your members to perish, then your whole body should be cast into hell. Wow. And if your right hand, same place, offends you, cut it off and cast it from you, for it's profitable for thee if one of the members of your body perish, then your whole body should be cast into hell. I wonder if that's the remnants right there. In other words, don't take the mark, and if you do, gouge out your eye or cut off your hand. That sounds pretty gory, doesn't it? It is. But think of it this way. Is it worth it if he's actually is a remnant of the tribulation period? Is it worth it to do that? Yes. Yes, it will be. Yes. Now, let's go to Revelation 13, 1 through 3. This is more tracking what's going to happen 1 through 3. So Revelation, talking about the Antichrist being fatally wounded. And it says, and I stood, and some have the pronoun I, or it could be he. Some translations put Satan stood there, and the dragon. So really, it's a pronoun that could have a lot of different fillers in there, okay? So it doesn't say dragon or Satan or anything, it's just a pronoun. And I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw the beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his head 10 crowns, and upon his heads were names of blasphemy. Revelation 13:2. And the beast which I saw was like a leopard, and his feet were like that of a bear, and his mouth was like a lion. And the dragon gave him his power, and his seat, and his great authority. Okay? And I saw one of the heads as if it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wandered after the beast. So he has a head on there that's fatally wounded. It doesn't say it's a fake death. It says it was fatally wounded. I think that's the assassination attempt on the Antichrist. So let's see what happens to him. Revelation 17, verses 3, 7, and 8. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman who sat upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Same beast. And the angel said unto me, why do you marvel? I will tell you the mystery of the woman and the beast that carries her, and of the 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast which you saw was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. Okay, so the beast itself apparently is going to die. All right, and is going to descend into, what's perdition? But what does it literally mean? The Antichrist is called son of perdition. It could be translated. Yes, destruction. Destruction. Now, remember my teaching on the Antichrist? And who was the Antichrist that I taught on that one time? Nero. The church believed the Antichrist was Nero, and that even after he died, that he would be resurrected again. They believed that for a few hundred years, even after he died. And if you understand the sequencing there, the 7-headed beast, 5 are, 1 is, and 1 is yet to come. And then the other one that comes is an 8th, but he's one of the 7. And we put it all together, and it turns out, wow, Nero fits that. So does Nero descend out? Who knows? Okay, now, the son of perdition is only used for two people in the scriptures. Who? The Antichrist? Yes. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. And Judas, the son of perdition. What happened to Judas? He was possessed by who? Satan himself. Satan entered him. And now I'm telling you, when the Antichrist rises again from the dead, guess what? Satan will literally possess him. And we're going to see where that occurs. And in fact, I would say that's how he rises from the dead. It's because Satan literally possesses the Antichrist. Okay? So Luke 22:3. Then Satan entered into Judas, being numbered amongst the 12. Okay? And then in John 17:12, he's called the son of perdition. All right? So now we see in 2 Thessalonians 2:3 that the man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. The man of sin, now listen carefully, is the Antichrist in the first half, when he's just a man. The son of perdition, just like Judas, is after Satan possesses him. That's the second half, when he rises from the dead. Now, answer Mike's question. When is he assassinated? Get this. 3 days before mid-trib. Why? Then he's 3 days and 3 nights in the grave. Trying to copy Jesus. Yeah, so you can say, look, 3 days, 3 nights in the grave. Everybody knows the Messiah. Look, this guy was 3 days, 3 nights in the... And nobody's going to doubt that he died. Who knows what kind of injury it is? Maybe blows away half his head or something. I don't know. But... I'll do it. 3 days as a typology. Jonah was in the fish 3 days and 3 nights. Okay, so that's what the Antichrist is going to happen to him. Okay, now here's what happens in Revelation 13:4 and 5, which kind of gives us a marker as to when all this happens. Okay, it says this. It says, and they worshipped the dragon who gave power unto the beast. So somewhere along the way, the dragon, who was who? Satan, the serpent of old, right, in the Garden of Eden, he gave his power unto the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, who's like the beast? Who can make war with him? And there was given him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemy, and power was given to him to continue for 42 months. Wait a minute. Continue for 42 months. And it's not have power, not just to be there for 42 months. It's to continue. So he went the first half as the man of sin. He dies 3 days before. He's resurrected by Satan. And that's why Satan gives him the power to continue for 42 months. The second half. And everybody got that? That's why it happens at mid-trib, okay? And plus, look what they're saying. They're saying, who can make war with him? Why are they saying that? I'll tell you why. Who's in the first half? 2 witnesses. And they sit there and they thumb their nose at everybody, right? They can't be stopped. And I'm sure they fire nuclear missiles at them and nothing happens. And then what happens? Voila, the Antichrist resurrects from the dead and he kills them. He overcomes them. That's why they're saying, who can make war with the Antichrist? Get it? He just got through taking out these 2 invincible dudes, right? That could do all these miracles. Fire comes out of their mouth. They can call a drought, and we talked about that before. They can do all kinds of stuff. They can call down any plague, and nobody could harm them. But then the Antichrist comes along, and he resurrects exactly at mid-trib, and he stops them, and they say, well, who can make war with this guy? And everybody's in awe, is afraid of him. So you see the picture that I'm painting. So does it make sense that he has the assassination attempt 3 days before mid-trib, and then mid-trib, Satan enters him, right? The son of perdition. And then he takes out the two witnesses right there. And then he walks into the very temple of God, proclaiming himself as being God. All on the same day. Okay, so that's why Jesus said in Matthew 24:15, when you see the abomination of desolation, you who are in Judea, flee the mountains. Everything has changed. As bad as it is, everything has changed. How long is the ministry of the two witnesses, Pam? Yes, Revelation 11:3 is 1,260 days. And nobody can stop them. Period. The bodies are in the street for 3.5 days, okay? Now, and we talked about the famine. The famine that's going to come, that's one of the third horse or something. And the third horse rider, and that's because Elijah's one of the witnesses. He says that no rain's going to fall on the earth for how long? 3.5 years. That's the first half. Would that cause a famine for the second half? Yeah. That's going to cause a severe famine. And in fact, we're heading for a big famine now worldwide, aren't we? With all the stuff they've done. It's not just here in America. What they've done worldwide is going to cause a worldwide famine pretty soon. Anyways, add that with a 3.5-year drought that's going to come. I'm glad I'm not going to be here. Okay, so the Antichrist overcomes them at mid-trib, and they continue on. Now I'm up to a little remnant here. Where does it have 666 in Scripture? Okay, and that's the Antichrist. Who else? Solomon. Remember, what was his wages every year? 666 pieces of gold. Okay, so Solomon, right? And so Solomon, the Antichrist, and believe it or not, and that was a common thing Mr. said until I was ready to throw up. But the truth of the matter is, let me see, what is this? There's a third person. That's 666 is Adonikim. Okay? He had the descendants from him from the book of Ezra were 666. The 3 times you're going to find that number with Solomon, Adonikim, and with the Antichrist. Now, why would this guy Adonikim be, and I've never seen this before. I just was kind of fooling around with it one day, and that's Ezra 2:13, if you want to look up that verse. Ezra 2:13 talks about his descendants being 666. Well, that's kind of weird. Okay, let's see if I can piece this together, all right? When the Antichrist is resurrected, he's going to take that title, I think, Adonikim. Okay? It means the Lord is risen. It speaks of his resurrection. The Lord is risen. Adonai, that's a name for God. Adonai, Elohim, Adonai, God or Lord, and is risen. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to do the Paleo-Hebrew for his name. And here's what I came out with. And I did not make this up. You can look it up yourself, okay? Here is his name in Paleo-Hebrew. The leader goes through a door or a portal to continue to get life, to work, and to speak chaos. That's what his name means. Does that speak of his resurrection? He goes through a door or a portal, talking about the line between life and death, to continue to speak and to work chaos. Why 2 witnesses? Revelation 11. Why 2? Because of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, every fact shall be confirmed, right? 2 witnesses. That's why it says don't, accept the accusation against an elder except on the basis of 2 or 3 witnesses. Matthew 18, my favorite pastor used to quote this out of context every time. Well, where 2 or 3 have gathered together, there I am in their midst. So if you're there by yourself, Jesus will have nothing to do with you. Because you're only one person, right? Is that true? Well, what if you have 4? That's more than 3, right? It's got to be 2 or 3. Actually, he's talking about church discipline. Someone sins against you, first go to them. If not, then you take the church with them. Then you publicly proclaim it. That's the 2 or 3 witnesses. Jesus is in their midst. It has nothing to do with fellowship. What does Moses represent to the Jews? The law. What does Elijah represent to the Jews? Oh, the law and the prophets. That's the Tanakh. That's their Old Testament. What better 2 witnesses to the Jews than the law and the prophets? Yeah. Okay. Both had unfinished ministries. Tell me how they had unfinished ministries.
Moses was not allowed to take them into the promised land.
Yes, he was not. Moses couldn't take them into the promised land. Okay. And then that's because he hit the rock twice. God told him to speak to the rock and water would flow out of it. He said, must we bring water from this rock, you rebels? And he hit it, and Christ was only to be smitten once. The rock that followed them according to their Jewish traditions was Christ. He brings it up in Corinthians. So for him to smite the rock again means that Christ was going to be smitten again for the Holy Spirit of the water come out, and it's not true. But he said, must we, and it wasn't Moses bringing forth the water. Okay, so he messed up the type. Get this, he messed up the typology, so God said, you're not going into the land.
That's serious.
Is God serious about typology? Probably. So he messed up the typology, so he could not go into the land. Okay? Now there's some that say, well, look, here on the Mount of Transfiguration, guess what? He got into the land. But some say that mountain was actually outside the borders of Israel. But anyways, maybe he did get into the land. Now, so we see that Elijah had an unfinished ministry, right? In fact, he had to pass his mantle on to who? Elisha, to finish it up against Jezebel, right? Okay, so Moses never got into the land, didn't finish his ministry, but that was a typology too. Moses could not lead them into the promised land. Another guy did. What was his name? Yeshua. Yeah, Yeshua. That's Joshua. His name was Yeshua. Yehoshua. You take out the H-O and it's Yeshua, the shortened form. So Moses, the law couldn't lead them into the promised land. It had to be Joshua or Yeshua that leads them into the promised land. Okay, now you have Elijah, unfinished ministry, right? He didn't finish it up. So they both had unfinished business, which then we'll look at some other things. Okay, let's look at who they fought against. Moses fought against a plurality of gods. Exodus 12:12. He says he would execute judgment against all the gods of Egypt. Okay? That's God talking. He used Moses. So Moses fought against a bunch of gods, right? Who did Elijah fight against? Baal. Okay? 1 Kings 16:31-32. It was brought in by who? Jezebel. Right? And they erected a temple to Baal, and they erected the house of Baal, and they started worshiping. And of course, at the great showdown, there were 450 prophets of Baal there. Okay? And there's also 400 prophets of the Ashereth, which I'm going to get into too, because that plays into this. So basically, Moses against a whole bunch of gods, and then Elijah against Baal. All right? So there's a pattern there of one or many to just one. Now, here's an interesting thing. In the first half of the tribulation, there's many gods. In the second half, there's only one. That Moses and Elijah have to fit in. Listen to this. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day, the day of the Lord, shall not come except there first come a falling away, and the man of sin, the son of perdition, is revealed, who opposes and exalts himself above everything that is called God. That's all the gods, plural, so that he is worshipped, so that he as God sits in the temple. So now there's only one God, from many gods to one God. So I suspect during the first half, there's a lot of demon worship, occultism, a lot of worship of different gods. Second half, guess what? Just one God, the false God. Okay? Now also, there's something else I noticed today. And this gets kind of deep. There were 450 prophets of Baal against Elijah, right? We talked about God's going to raise up Elijah when the spirit of Jezebel's there, right? John the Baptist, when the spirit of Jezebel, Herodias was there. And you had like the real Elijah come when Jezebel herself was physically there. And now, in the last days, there's going to be Revelation 17 and 18, the whore of Babylon. That's Jezebel. Okay? So, who was Ashtoreth? That was the male or female consort of Baal, his mistress. Who's Baal? It is the Antichrist, or Satan. And who's his mistress? The whore of Babylon. So you can put all that together. Okay? Which is kind of interesting. Okay? Now what about, it says in Revelation 11, 3 through 6. Revelation 11, 3 through 6. Listen to these miracles. You ready? And I will give power unto my two witnesses. They shall prophesy 1,260 days in sackcloth. These are the two olive trees and two candlesticks that stand before the Lord of the earth. Fire proceeds out of the mouth and devours their enemy. Who did that? Who brought down fire? Elijah. 2 Kings 1, 9 through 12. Okay? They have power to shut the heavens so it does not rain in the days of their prophecy. Who did that? Elijah. 1 Kings 17, 1. And they have power to turn the waters into blood. Who did that? Moses. Exodus 7:20. Okay, is God giving us clues here? And to smite the earth with all plagues as often as they will. Well, that's Moses in the book of Exodus against a type of the Antichrist, Pharaoh, and Egyptians. Egypt is the world. Okay, so is everybody starting to see that maybe, just maybe, Elijah and Moses could be the two witnesses? Maybe. Okay. And also, there's something strange. They both had strange departures from this earth. They didn't die like regular men. What happened to Moses? God took him out the mountain and buried him. Did God ever personally bury anyone else that we know about? No. And then something strange happens at that point after he got buried. What strange thing happened? Yes. Jude 9. Michael the archangel and Satan dispute over the body of Moses. Whoa. What was that about? It's almost like the body of Moses was going to be reused or something, right? Like in a resurrection. Okay. And what about Eliyahu or Elijah? Did he have a strange departure? He was raptured. Yeah, in a chariot of fire, right? So both had strange departures, okay? And then in the last few verses in the Old Testament, what two people are mentioned? Malachi 4 through 6. Listen to this. Remember the law of Moses, my servant, okay, which I commanded him in Hebron and all Israel with the statutes and judgments. Okay. Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And he shall turn the hearts of the father to the children, and the hearts of the children to the father, lest I come and smite the land with a curse. The last two people mentioned in the Old Testament, Moses and Elijah. And he even says explicitly, Elijah is coming back. Now, how can you miss that? Now, let's go to the Mount of Transfiguration, Luke 9:28 through 36. Okay? And behold, and they appear in other Gospels, 9:30, Luke 9:30, and behold, there talked with them two men, which were Moses and Elijah. Now, again, Mike, back to your question. How did they know it was Moses and Elijah? Because that's where Peter says, well, let's build 3 tabernacles. One for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah.
They knew back then, but what about?
Yeah.
Up during the tribulation?
Well, how did they know back then? That's my question.
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah, because he had a beard and he looked like the paintings on the wall. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Well, I would say this because they're in the kingdom of heaven. In the kingdom of heaven, you have that knowledge. Now, how do the Jews know? I think there's going to be some kind of marker or something that they will know it's Moses and Elijah. I couldn't tell you how.
Right.
Okay? But I'm pretty sure they will figure it out. Okay? And so Moses and Elijah are discussing the Exodus, the departure that Jesus is about to accomplish in Jerusalem. The word is Exodus. In other words, him going to Jerusalem and accomplishing salvation. And Jesus said before that, I truly say to you that there's some standing here who shall not taste death until they see the kingdom of God come in glory and power. That was when they saw it in the very next chapter. Moses and Elijah are going to come. They're going to be the 2 witnesses. I'm convinced of that. And why see, in our sterile, theological, powerless, non-supernatural life that often we live here in America, it just seems kind of, too spooky to say Moses and Elijah, right? What are you talking about, resurrected? Yeah. And it's not. It's not. And then we quote verses like, well, it's appointed for man to die once, and after that comes the judgment, which doesn't apply in this case, because there's other people who died twice, right? Lazarus. So he didn't face the judgment. He died twice. And other people, like the widow's son that was being carried out, and Jesus touched you remember the coffin, he rose. And other thing, weren't they putting Elisha's bones into a grave, and then it touched the corpse, and the corpse popped up and stuff? Yeah. And then there's people that rose at the resurrection, or when Jesus died, I should say. And so we see that it's not at all astounding. And it doesn't just all of a sudden get supernatural just out of the blue. I think it's getting supernatural now. I think we're in heavy spiritual warfare. I think we're seeing more and more manifestations of, and don't get me started on the UFOs, because I will not stop. Okay? I think the UFOs, I've been talking about that for decades, about who they really are, and how the government's trying to hold up. Now all of a sudden they're trying to push that narrative. And they will produce actual, real, physical spaceships. Now, I'll tell you a quickie here. I was listening to this podcast where this supposed ex-CIA agent, you guys make this whatever you want, and he was saying down on the South Pole, that's where they keep these alien beings. Now, there was a rift in the time-space fabric caused by Jack Parsons. Anybody know who Jack Parsons is? JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratory. He founded that. And some people, we laughingly call it the Jack Parsons Laboratory, JPL. And then he, along with L. Ron Hubbard. Who's that? Yeah, the guy founded Scientology. He was also a sci-fi writer. He wrote Dianetics or something like that. Okay, anyways, they together, I think in 1947 when the UFOs started to appear, did a ceremony called the Whore of Babylon. They did a ceremony to bring forth the Whore of Babylon. And they apparently, now this depends on how much you accept of this, created a rift in the time-space fabric, and they couldn't get it closed. And then the government found out about it, and they thought, oh man, these beings have a lot of knowledge. And so they started, keeping them down there at the South Pole and stuff. But the whole point I want to make is, you know what they called themselves? These aliens? No. They called themselves the Nephilim. That's what this guy said. They called themselves, remember the AI that I played at one time? And it was saying, it's a Nephilim. I'm telling you, there's some people way ahead of their time, like Missler, who've been talking about this, for like 4 decades. The return of the Nephilim. Of course, back then you were a kook. It was conspiracy. It doesn't sound so kookish now, does it? Real quick primer on this is you have fallen angels. Angels are angels.
Yes.
You have fallen ones and those who are still in heaven. Okay? They're like the angels in heaven that neither marry or given in marriage. Well, see, angels can't mate. Those are the angels in heaven. Not talking about the fallen angels in Genesis 6. The Benai Ha Elohim, the sons of God. That term is always used of angels. Come down and they marry the women. And they have offspring Nephilim. So you have fallen angels who can somehow assume a body. So they're never looking to possess people. They can assume a body. We never hear about fallen angels trying to possess people. They're not the demons or unclean spirits. Now, they produce, when they mate with the women, Nephilim. What does Nephilim mean? Nope. That's what the KJV has for there. They were giants. But what does it mean? It means fallen ones. Think about that one. Nephilim means fallen ones. Okay? And it only appears in 2 places, that particular Hebrew word. Genesis 6:4 and Numbers 13:33. For some reason I remember that, 13:33. Anyways, that's when the spies come back from spying out the land, okay, and they're scared to death. Now remember, they have seen the miracles of God, the pillar of fire and the water, everything, and they're scared to death. So we think, oh, they saw somebody that was 6'5" and they got scared. Man, we have such a Sunday school.
They saw angels?
No, they saw Nephilim. He said, we saw the sons of Anak. You know what Anak means? It means long-necked one. And when someone drew a giant, I remember somebody talking about they drew a giant anatomically and they had a long neck. He goes, why'd you do that? He goes, because anatomically, that's what they have to have, is long necks. Or whatever that's worth. But anyways, the long-necked one. And then they were Nephilim in the land, the fallen ones, okay? The Nephilim. And they were scared to death. He says, we were like grasshoppers in their sight. We're talking really tall, and they were scared to death. Okay? So in that, when they came back, they had reason to be afraid. So Nephilim is a hybrid. It's the offspring of fallen angels with the women. Okay? And then they had the Nephilim. Now, get this. Now, the Nephilim would mate with the women again, and eventually their gene pool would be more human, and they would start to shrink in size. Okay? And they would there's probably a Nephilim walking among us today. But when the Nephilim die, their spirits don't do what our spirit. Now, this is what the ancients say. They say the demons and the unclean spirits are the spirits of the Nephilim. In other words, they continue to have their voracious appetites, food, the lust drive, everything else, but they can't satisfy it. Okay? They never get rest. That's why they're always trying to possess people so they can satisfy that. Okay? So now you know what you're up against. So it's not a fallen angel. And there's plenty of those. Probably according to Revelation 12, when the dragon with his tail, took a third of the stars of heaven, a third of the angels with him. Okay, because angels are all the time referred to as stars. Okay, but remember, there's 2/3 left, plus we have God, which is more than enough. It's what we call familiar spirits. Okay, probably the Nephilim. In other words, they're masquerading. Remember now, the Nephilim have been around since the time of Noah. They've been around thousands of years, and they accumulated a lot of knowledge. And they're probably, and it could be fallen angels or Nephilim. That's probably where we get the ascended masters. Everybody know what the ascended masters are? In the occult, they speak. They're the spirits on the other side, and they have ascended to a higher plane of evolution. Oh, and open the door for us, and we'll help you ascend to a higher plane. Yeah. Evil, deceptive, and it's all coming upon us. Okay?
They are limited what they're allowed to do.
Yeah. Yes, they have to stay within the bounds of what God sets. And that's why, man, if you're not a child of the Father, I'd be scared to death. I would be, shuddering every night, seriously, if I didn't know God. Instead, I'd fallen off roofs, getting COVID, whatever. And still, even then, I'm not afraid. And it's not because I'm some brave guy. I just know, like the two witnesses, they will prophesy 1,260 days. I don't care what Satan does. And I don't care if all the armies of the world come against them. That's their duration. And until God says time's up, they're going to fulfill their ministry. And that's the same with us as we walk with God. That's why it says in the book of Jude, and I'll finish with this, keep yourselves in the love of God. God's love is there. Okay? But you can come out from under that love if you want. It's like an umbrella. Keep yourself under the umbrella of God. Can you come out from an umbrella and get beat by the rain and all that? Oh, yeah. It's your choice. In the same way, in these last days, keep yourself in the love of God. Pursue him and follow him like crazy. Like he's running from you. It's the way I always put it, but he's not. He's actually running after you. But act like he's running from you. And do whatever it takes to get closer to him. Seriously. Just know we're in a horrific spiritual battle right now. And again, if you're thinking in terms of the white picket fence, the nice comfy retirement, good luck. Even if I could have that, I wouldn't have it. The life I'm living is too exciting. So I even fall down towards the cement, and I'm thinking, man, this is great. Actually, I don't even remember that. But seriously, I have an arm I can't even lift, and I'm not being funny. I am so thankful for that. Because now God has caused me to, if he makes me depend upon him that much more through anything, is it worth it? Yeah, I hate this, but is it worth it? That's the question. And what price are you willing to pay, right? If it gets you closer to God. And all I'm saying is Deuteronomy 6:4 and 6:5. It's, Hear, O Israel, the Lord is God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mayod, all your very. I know. Strange word right there, right? In other words, to the utter extremity of everything that you are. Just kind of covers the whole gamut. If it takes whatever it takes to get you there, just pray that God does it, seriously. But don't cry if he does it. Don't cry, but it's worth it. Seriously, we're right here at the end. Why hold back? Right? No sense in that.